One of the pleasures of this class is getting to see me in living color. And okay, maybe not a pleasure, maybe that's a punishment, but I will impart information to you in videos on a fairly often basis. This time around, I want to talk about how to avoid writing a how-to paper and how to avoid writing a book report. And to avoid a book report, you need to have summary, synthesis, evaluation, and analysis. And I'm going to talk about that after I talk about how to avoid the how-to. In technical writing, you would often be called upon or almost expressly be writing how-to information. But writing how-to is not the same as an informative essay. How-tos would include, how-tos. Did I say households? It's summer, it's hot. How-tos would include technical manuals, how to put together a project, how to bake a cake, those types of issues, usually following step by step by step. Now, one of the last how-to papers I had, which did not fit the criteria for the paper, was on worm farming. And when the student said, I want to write a paper on worm farming, I said, hey, that sounds interesting because I've never had a paper on that before. But when I got the paper and read it, it was delineating and explaining how to raise worms, etc. What do you feed worms? How often do you water worms? Those types of issues. That is not what I am looking for in an informative paper. So be very careful to avoid the technical how-tos and save those for a technical writing class. Now, some of you are going to be more inclined to be technical writers than essay writers. That's okay. But in this class, which is a composition class, you will be required to set aside your technical bend and lean towards the academic and formal aspects of essay writing. And as I say in the announcement, the reason why I emphasize this is because if you plan to go on to a four-year college or university, whether MSU, Drury, or any other school, the bulk of the papers that you will be writing will be academic formal essays. Now, even if you plan to be a creative writer, and I have had about, in 10 years of teaching college English, I probably had about 4 people who plan to become creative writers, but it doesn't matter because even if you major in creative writing in English, you would still be required to take other types of classes in which you will be writing formal essays. So again, avoid the how-to and understand the necessity of what it is that I am teaching to you and why it is I am teaching it to you. Now, the other thing that I want you to avoid is a book report. Now, book reports have their places, but they do not have their places in college composition classes. In grade school and even high school, I'm pretty sure that you were required to write book reports. And again, they were fulfilling a purpose. 1 is to teach you how to summarize, and 2, to simply make you read and prove that you read the book by writing a book report. Now, having said that, I taught elementary school, and I know some students would write book reports without having read the book. So maybe that's not quite that effective. But when you are writing an essay, whether it be informative, whether it be persuasive, compare and contrast, or any of those types of essays, there are 4 elements that you must combine. And if you do these will help you avoid writing a book report. Number 1 is you need to summarize. Now, I just said that is what you do in a book report, and that is true. But in an academic essay, your summary is held to a bare minimum. If you were going to summarize the entirety of one of your sources, why would I bother to read your paper? I would go directly to the source and I would read what that author has to say. So your summary is going to be kept to a bare minimum and only telling your audience enough of what it needs to know in order to make your source's information clear. The other thing that you are going to be doing in this class is you are going to be synthesizing. And synthesizing is the same regardless of whether you're talking about music, writing, or other aspects. Now, those of you who are musically inclined, what do you do when you synthesize in music? You put different sounds together. That is basically what you are doing in an essay as well, with differences, of course. You are taking your sources and you are synthesizing the information that you get from those sources. This means you're not talking about source A in a section and then move on to source B, and then if there's a source C, D, and so on, and you write about each one of them in turn. Don't do that, because you're not truly synthesizing the information. You're going to be mixing it up. And because all of the papers that you're going to be writing for this course requires more than one source, then you are going to have to synthesize. Then you are going to evaluate what your sources have said. Is this source reliable? And you're not going to go through and say, this is a summary, this is a synthesis, now I'm evaluating. But merely by writing what you think, and you're not going to say I think or I believe, but merely evaluating the quality of your sources and whether that source is reliable and what that source has to say about your subject is evaluation. If you were going to present something that you don't think is very reliable, then you are going to inform the audience. This is not, I'm presenting this to you, and the reason why is maybe it's a popular concept, but you are going to make sure that your audience knows that you don't think this source is reliable. And then number 4 is analysis. And that is exactly what it says. You are going to analyze what your sources say. Why do they say this? And this will apply in the informative, but it will especially apply in the persuasive that I'm going to talk more about in the next module. Now, the informative paper is for me to get, it serves a couple of purposes. One is so you start reacquainting yourself with MLA format and how to write an academic paper. And number 2, it allows me to see how good your mechanics are, how well you can progress through a paper, and the level that you are at and your areas of improvement. Now, sorry, I kind of got off track there. But even in the informative paper, you will be analyzing. You will be giving me stats and figures, which could be summary, but you are going to tell me why those are important and how they work. For example, if you read a source, research a source, and it says that 97% of black cats are evil, why? First of all, you will evaluate that source. Is that statement true? And then you will analyze it and tell your audience why 97% of black cats are evil. And I picked on cats because I have 3 of them that you're going to see in the background in my videos. So keep those things in mind when you were writing. You're not giving me a how-to paper, and you are not giving me a book report. Don't spit back too much information to me. And remember, summary, synthesis, evaluation, and analysis. And I'm going to stop rambling, not rumbling. And I just noticed, man, my bangs are all messed up. So no comments on the bangs.